First, I want to say how happy I am to be here at the Italian Embassy, and I say that as a member of one of the hidden networks, probably unknown to most of you, but it's recipients of the Urbino World Press Award, which is given by Claudio in this embassy. The recipients have included Tom Friedman, Helene Cooper, the New York Times, other journalists, and the painful, onerous requirement of receipt of this award is that you have to go to Urbino, this beautiful hill town in the Marche in northeastern Italy, and receive it in person and give a speech in a medieval hall. So it's nice to be part of that conspiratorial fraternity. I want to just make a couple of very brief points in the hope that we'll talk more about them in the discussion period. First, covering the process we used to call the Arab Spring. There's no question that in terms of the organizing drive, this was a revolution of hashtags. Mark Lynch, who I think is one of the best, if not the best, chroniclers of what has happened over the last 2 years, literally divides it up in his book, The Arab Uprising, hashtag January 25, on through the different countries. And you can see the role that social media played in organizing. Yet if we look at Egypt, the cauldron of revolution, we can see that the revolution of hashtags was inherited by a different kind of social network, with, you could argue, a very traditional, almost pre-modern structure, namely the Muslim Brotherhood, which had the power and resonance throughout the country. And that leads me to make an observation that I felt strongly in Iraq and really in every other part of the Middle East as I've watched the toppling of traditional repressive authoritarian structures of order. And that is that the hope that those structures will be replaced by modern networks that enable citizens, that build citizen power, has too often, and I would say in almost every instance, been disappointed that the inheritors, when you knock over those structures of authority, are pre-modern loyalties of tribe, of sect, of region. It's a terrible paradox that, you know, on your way, what you think is change heading forward, the result can be to hurl people backwards in time. And that's what happened to Iraq, which was on the way to becoming, in many ways, the most secular and progressive country in the region, despite this odious regime under which people live. And as a result of, unintended result of our knocking down the structure that kept order, people turned to militias, tribes, you know, these ancient structures. I've seen recently that social media are a recruiting tool for good and ill in big, hot revolutions, as in Syria. When I was in Aleppo, I was struck by the way in which fighters who had come to Aleppo to fight in this really pivotal battle for the future of Syria had been drawn initially by their interaction with Syrians seeking change, hating the regime on Facebook and on Twitter. And had gotten, people would say, I got to know these people. And by that, of course, they didn't mean face-to-face, they meant in the social media sense. And so they'd take a trip from Dubai, where they were living, or a trip from Saudi Arabia to Aleppo, and then they'd have to go back, and they'd take another longer trip. And then pretty soon they were fighters in this revolution. The same goes for the jihadists. It's simply a truism to say that the command and control system for the people who most want to do Americans, Europeans, and I would say responsible, progressive people in the Arab world harm, use these social media, use the internet as their means of communication and organizing. Exchanging cell phone videos of your exploits and blowing things up has become routine. If you ever want to really have a fright, to take a look at some of the videos that are exchanged on these internet sites about what people have done. quickly, a couple of other points. I'm struck by how it's not social media per se, but the mix of social media and more traditional media, in particular television coverage on Al Jazeera, Arabia, of these conflicts where people are sort of poaching, constantly exposed to the same realities, and then talk about it on social media and mobilize themselves and raise their level of indignation, raise their level of commitment. But it's the combination of the two together. If you didn't have Al Jazeera's, I think, incredibly brave coverage, having seen their crews in Syria, I'll tell you, they are taking risks every day to bring great, powerful reporting, heartbreaking reporting to the world. I want to end with one final point, and it's, I guess, the obvious one for me. As I look at this story of social media and the growing power of social media, I see the way in which it organizes people along their lines of affinity. It groups together like-minded people. It allows you to communicate with your friends. It allows you to say nasty things about your enemies. In other words, it takes the divides that are there in society and gives them new power and empowers the people who have a particular point of view. Unfortunately, I have not yet seen anywhere, and I challenge this audience to tell me I'm wrong, or any of my panelists. I haven't seen the power of social media for governance, for the process of pulling divided societies together towards solving problems. You could take the United States as a case in point. Certainly for journalists who need to be part of this process of solving problems, social media are, in some cases, obsession with Twitter takes time away from the reporting that we could do that would expose to you problems that matter, that you might then, as citizens, do something to fix. But we're too busy tweeting. And in my business, we're going to have to sort that out better, because I think, frankly, a lot of really talented people waste too much time that they could apply better to addressing problems.
Thank you.